Radio DCEM 954, the voice of truth, the official radio station of the Church of Christ or Iglesia ni Cristo.
Good morning, South Central States, and to all of our friends and family watching us from around the world. Welcome to INCRadio, and today we are going to have a very entertaining discussion about decades, like which decade was actually the best decade ever. So make sure you include that in your chat, and as we talk, you can agree, you can disagree, it is okay. So apparently they said I have to represent the 80s. I don't know why, because it's like I'm only 29, so I don't know how I could be representing the 80s. But today I am going to say why 80s is the best. We have here in studio, Rome. Who are you representing today, Rome?
Good morning, good afternoon, good day, everyone. I'm representing the 90s.
Ooh, the 90s.
Yes.
If we have any 90s folks out there, you might need to support him because I think the 80s is still the best. And then from Oklahoma City, we've got Nala. Nala.
Hey, coming from Oklahoma City, I'm representing the 2000s, which packs quite a punch. So we'll see.
All right. So we'll start off with this. Describe your decade in 3 words. Okay. So for me, I think the 80s at the time was vibrant, excessive, and materialistic. And we'll say why later when we talk about all the stuff that goes on. What about you, Rome? How would you describe the 90s?
I was having a difficult time coming up with a third one, but I'd say resilient, adaptive, and let's just say zennial or millennial.
Okay. And Nala?
For the 2000s, I'd say historic, nerdy, and social. For all the things
Nerdy.
that I have.
I like that one, nerdy. All right, so let's start. Let's start off with fashion first. I don't know if you guys remember the 80s, but that's why I said vibrant, because 80s was all about neon colors, right? You had your leg warmers, you had the scrunchies. The scrunchies, I think, was the first time we started using that. And for the ladies, for the guys out there who don't know, scrunchies was the hair tie that was made out of material that the girls needed to use for their hair, because at the time we had big hair, because it was all poofy and everything like that. So that was our fashion. What about 90s? What was a fashion in the 90s?
I know growing up in the 90s, there was a lot of different fashion types, kind of depending on who you were, what crowd you were with. There's like grunge. I remember wearing Jinko jeans. Anybody remember that? Jinko jeans?
No.
No. There are wide leg jeans, like super, super wide leg, like you could fit 2 people in each leg.
Like bell bottoms.
And a little bit, no, because they were wide all the way through, not just at the bottom.
Okay.
And I used to always have to steal the stapler from my teacher and staple the bottom so I wouldn't step on them or get them wet. There's a lot of other things from fashion back then, like having no-show socks. Like we used to take our tube socks and fold them in half, and then that would be our no-show socks. But there's a lot of different other things but those are the ones I remember most deeply.
What about Nala? What was fashion like in the 2000s?
I mean, some of that bled over from the 90s. I remember the no-show socks and trying to get my tube socks to not show because my mom wouldn't buy me the no-shows. But for the 2000s, what I remember a lot of is like graphic tees. So you wanted to wear as many different kinds of characters as you could. There was also a lot of like futuristic almost kind of things. The metallic stuff was really big back in the 2000s. And then all sorts of different types of jeans. You had the skinny jeans. Like we kept borrowing from everybody. So skinny jeans, we got the flares, you got you had all sorts of different kinds of pants going with your shirts that were all different every day of the week.
What about our viewers? I think we have comments there of what they remember from their decade. What do we have up there, Nate? Okay, so 80s fashion, we got the faux leather jacket. That is so true. I do remember that because leather jacket was expensive, so you had to go with a faux, right? Alarm MJ. Oh, Michael Jackson. Lace gloves. Yes, yes. And parachute pants. Oh, do you guys remember the parachute pants?
Yeah, the MC
that's
Hammers.
because that's when breakdancing came out, right?
Yeah.
And then we had what are the Kevarichi pants? Are those like the crop pants?
I don't know. I remember always having to wear corduroys in the early 80s or the 80s. Corduroy pants.
And then color cross. Oh, starter jackets. Oh, do you guys remember those?
I'm still waiting for them to come back out.
And I think they also had like the members only, right?
Yes. I have three jackets of members.
What else do we have? Low-rise jeans from the 2000s was a dark time.
Those need to stay back in the 2000s.
See, but the 80s stuff is coming back, right? And then we'll have the 80s, very colorful. It was. And big hair, like we said, yes, big hair, because we used a lot of aerosol hairspray at the time.
Yeah, bad for the ozone layer.
We didn't care about the ozone at the time. We were just all about the hair coming up, right? And like I was saying, I think the 80s fashion is coming back because my nephew likes to work out. And before he used to wear the long basketball shorts, right? And then recently he's been wearing the short shorts and then like the crop shirts. I'm like, dude, you're like bringing back the fashion that we used to have with all the weightlifters.
I think that's the thing with fashion, though. It always comes back around because I remember raiding my dad's closet, and just taking his stuff and wearing them to school.
Yep, I still do that to this day. Whenever my mom comes over, some of her shirts just randomly find their way back into my closet.
Pretty cool. Okay, and then we have one more comment, and he's Anthony said that he learned the different trends here in the U.S. and in the Philippines when he grew up. Back then, I was happy with white polo shirt, 501 Levi jeans, and topsider shoes. Oh, I forgot about the topsider shoes. That's right, because I think we also had our time was about the skaters, so they had like the Vans and the Converse and all that, and skaters. What's a baguette attire? What is that? What decade is that? Someone has to enlighten us in the Philippines. What is baguettes? Wait, I might know what it is. I don't know if I want to say. Now that I think about it, when they said Philippines. Okay, so before we go on with our topic, let's do our first thinking cap, okay? And this one's a pop culture question. So this popular 80s hairstyle has often been described as business in front and party in the back. Is it A, don't forget, only do the letters, okay? So is it A, mohawk, B, rat tail, C, mullet, and D, flat top? Okay, the 80s hairstyle that is often described as business in the front, party in the back. A, the mohawk, B, the rat tail, C, the mullet, and the D, the flat top. Fortunately, I did not have any of these hairstyles. Rome, were you even alive in the 80s?
Yes, I was born in the 80s. So
did you have any of these hairstyles?
I almost had a rat tail, but it didn't grow that long.
Wait,
there's a lot of people who have mullets nowadays too.
Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah.
Now the rat tail, that's the one where your head is shaved, but then you had that just a little tail in the back, right?
Yes.
Oh, I do remember that.
Yeah.
I didn't think that was cool. Okay, what about pop culture? What was pop culture like during your times? So for me in the 80s, I thought we had the best music. You had your alternative groups like Depeche Mode, OMD, you had Duran Duran, and for those who like to follow, Journey was in the 80s, even though it's still popular now because there's a Filipino singer in Journey now, right?
Yeah.
But we had New Order, so I thought we had cool bands, and then we also had the King of Pop started in the 80s, and then you had like Whitney Houston and Madonna and things like that. What kind of music did you have in the 90s?
There was a lot of different. I don't know if it was just me, but like I listened to a lot of different things. There was, pop rock. There was rap. I know it started like in 70s, 80s, but rap really started to pop off in the 90s. And then there was always the R&B, like pop groups. A lot of boy bands. NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, Kai.
What? Who was that? Do you guys remember Kai in the 90s? I do.
They're a really good group.
Like somebody in our district might remember them a little bit better than I would.
Should we get someone to like do a little test of the music of Kai?
I mean, nowadays, like K-pop's probably really big now, right? But back in the day, like 90s, there wasn't a lot of Asian groups.
No, there wasn't.
So when Kai came out, it was like, what? they look like me.
Yeah, and and you know what? I do remember, like, especially the Bay Area, because the Bay Area had a lot of Asian
Yes.
influence,
Yes.
and so they became very popular in the Bay Area, and the radio stations were playing them
Yeah.
on a regular basis. Because like you said, there weren't a lot of Asian groups like we have
Yeah.
now.
I grew up in Virginia Beach, and they came out to a couple concerts over there. It was great.
What about in the 2000s, Nala? What kind of groups did we have?
We didn't have very many different kinds. I think the biggest names of our generation are still kind of big. We had I remember the Jonas Brothers. I remember trying so hard to convince my parents to let me go to one of their concerts growing up. I know that there's a lot of pop rock groups too that were big in the 2000s. Like Panic at the Disco was still big when I was growing up. Paramore. You can see kind of what I was into, but those are kind of the bigger bands that I remember growing up still.
And you talk about concerts. I do remember back in the days, the concert really was about the music. They didn't put on a whole big show. It was just about seeing the artist and what they would perform.
Yeah.
Not like now. Now it's a big old show where it has to be a big production.
There's no cell phones in the crowds.
Yes. Yeah. So you're
just lighters.
Yeah, you were actually enjoying the music, right? What about
good music with your cell phone? Is just so you can enjoy it later.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, but then it's like it ruins your view because like people have their cell phones in front where you can't even see what the stage is because they're so busy recording, right?
I have an issue seeing anyway. I'm a little short.
So let's go see what our audience, our viewers are saying about the different groups. So Anthony said the Hanson Brothers, Mbop.
Yep, boom bop.
EMO. I don't know
Let's
who
go,
EMO is.
Eric.
Emo.
Let's go. Emo.
I don't know
really
who that is.
emotional music.
Yeah.
Okay. I wonder what decade that is. Oh, and then MC Hammer. Of course,
Yeah,
everyone
Vanilla
remembers
Ice.
MC Hammer and Vanilla Ice. That's
Yeah.
right. Oh, but do you guys remember Milli Vanilli? Okay, then 2000s, they said Backstreet Boys. Vanilla Ice, yeah. I used to know it. 90s pop, still karaoke. And Sync. Everyone talked about NSYNC.
NSYNC. I remember loving NSYNC even as a kid.
Early 2000s was fun to come on the radio. That love the 80s. Of course, see, I have to agree with Victor. 80s was the best. 90s pop. Well, that's because that's your wife. That's why she's supporting you.
Well, in my car, I like to listen to a lot of 80s music. So
I still do. And I have to find a radio station that would play the 80s.
yeah.
Otherwise, I'll have to go on my phone and do whatever it is I downloaded.
On the weekends, dancing to 2000s music is just, it can't be beat. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So Renz had put on here, remember the Walkman. See, so he's just segmenting into our next thing. And so I want to talk about what were the different things that were invented during your time. And yes, for the 80s is when the Walkman came out. So I don't know if you guys all remember what the Walkman is, but that was very popular. Also, Nintendo Game Boy was invented in the 80s. So all the new stuff now, it started when we were growing up. Also, the first computers were invented in the 80s, which the Apple, it never used to be called the Mac. It was the Macintosh. And so no one knew it as the Mac. It was a Macintosh. And then IBM also had their PCs. And then disposable contact lenses were invented in the 80s. What about you, Rome? What was invented in your decade?
Not sure what was really invented. I can't really think of anything off the top of my head. I do know that computers started hitting off big. I remember getting our first computer in our living room. The hard drive was only 2 gigabytes, which now you can fit on a thumb drive. It's crazy. Having to tell people to get off the phone so you can go online.
Yes.
So those were the days,
Dial up.
Everyone, if you grew up in that decade, you knew that sound, right?
Wait, Nala, do you remember dial-up?
Yes, I was growing up in I was born in 95. I still remember a lot of the things that were in the dial-up era. AOL, I still remember that. I wasn't allowed on it, but I remember it.
Yeah. And you know what's funny is I try to describe to my nephews what dial-up was, and they just can't seem to understand. They're like, what are you talking about? What is that? It's easy to get on internet, just get on your computer, and it is. But every time I try to describe dial-up, they don't know.
I think they started MySpace around that time too.
Friendster.
Friendster.
See, this is aging us. What about you, Nala? What was invented in the 2000s that we still use?
Hey, the Wii
Oh,
hit
that's
in
right.
the 2000s. The Wii brought
Wow.
everybody together with the little controllers and stuff. Um, I then also all those handhelds that were invented in earlier, they started getting to be where you can bring them anywhere. Because like the Game Boy Advance, you had to either have like the Game Boy Color or the light up one. Game Boy
Mm.
SP was the one that came out in our generation. I still remember my little blue one when my brother and I got our own handhelds. He started off on the red ones and I started off on the blue ones, and we would just continue it throughout all of our handhelds. The Xbox 360. So a lot of like the big consoles started really popping off in the 2000s. Um, of course, that's where I was. So, oh, and a lot of the social medias. That's the reason why I said social for the 2000s. Like, you didn't really start to build your identity on the internet until around our time. Because I feel like the 90s was one of the last generations where we were like, go outside, go play. Nowadays, it's you make your friends on social media, and that started in the 2000s.
Exactly. And so you were talking about video games. I remember the popular video games, which probably people think is low definition now, when it used to be high def, was like Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, Tetris, Super Mario started in the 80s. I mean, they've developed it to do a lot of different things now, but then we also had like Street Fighter, Galaga, Centipede, things like that.
I have a question for those on the chat. For those that are watching, which is the best system? Nintendo, Super Nintendo, GameCube, or like the 64?
GameCube.
Hold on, you have to throw Atari in there because Atari,
Atari,
was invented in the 80s.
Atari, yeah.
That was the original.
Yeah, the Atari. I know there's Xbox and PlayStation, but like what out of all the video game systems, what is the best one?
So for me, I would have to say Atari, only because we started with the Atari.
Yeah.
And the graphics of the different games you played are probably like low tech compared to what they are now, but it kept us entertained.
Yeah, I remember having a Commodore 64. So.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I know GameCube. I stand by GameCube. The Wii is pretty cool, but the GameCube had like the best party games. A lot of yelling matches were started on the GameCube that I remember fondly to this day.
See, and I do like the Wii only because that's one of the ones I could actually play, because you don't need like talent to do any of things in the Wii, not like with the with your Xbox now and your PlayStation. Those games are so difficult, right? Yeah.
Back in the day, you didn't have pausing either, so.
Yes.
The Wii was really good for like getting all of your casual gamers back into the scene and like getting all of that back, bringing gaming back to a more like accessible level.
Yes. But the cool thing about video games in the 80s is you all had to be in the same room playing together. Yeah. Now with the 90s and the 2000s, you could be virtual and play, but this one you had to be with your friends. So let's go to our comments, because I think people have stuff to say.
I'm interested to see.
Sega Genesis from Robert. Hi, Robert, in Florida.
That's a good one.
Street Fighter. Yes, Street Fighter came out in the 80s. What else do we have on our chats for video games? PlayStation 2, not 3.
Yeah.
I must agree.
Yeah.
Battle City. I don't remember that game. Battle City. Atari. Yes. See, Julian, I totally agree with you, because Atari's old school. PlayStation 3 was a game changer, literally. I guess so.
I can't forget about the console people too. Or PC.
Yeah. Nintendo 64. See, I did like Nintendo 64 because that's where they started coming out with Pokemon. Tank, Missile, Command, and Pong. Oh, yes. Those were your old school games. Wait, I think you're too young to know that kind of stuff. Oh, and then we have Noel, PS2, PlayStation 2. Okay. PC games, still the best.
See, you play on a PlayStation, Anthony. What?
Maybe you don't see him watching the PC games. Mario 3. Yes, Mario 3. PS2 was revolutionary console in the 2000s. Yes, it was. But I'm telling you, see, nothing can beat Atari. Atari started it all. If it wasn't for Atari, we probably wouldn't have any consoles, right? Napster. Oh my goodness. Do you guys remember Napster? Nala, do you know Napster?
Nope. Sorry. Not my generation.
Rome, do you remember Napster?
Yeah, with the Winamps and stuff.
Yeah. I remember that. That's where you could get all the cool stuff. Okay. So before we go on, we have a new segment, what we call the attention span. And so in between our different conversations, we're going to do different types of puzzles. And I want you guys to go ahead and put in the chat what you think your answers are. So these ones are going to be types of puzzles. And so our first one, if you go on to that one, is what is that? What do you think that is? So put it in the chat. Rome, do you think you know what the answer is?
Oh yeah, I definitely know what that.
You know what that is?
Yeah.
Nala, do you think you know what that is?
Oh, I know.
Oh, you know? All right. Are people putting stuff in the chat? Can you see if anyone's got any comments on there of what they think it is?
About 10 seconds.
Nobody yet? Okay. So we'll keep it up there for a little bit and try to think of I think these are called rebus puzzles. I can't remember.
Rebus puzzles, yeah. I
Yeah.
used to grow up doing these in school.
Okay,
Yeah,
so we have a
same.
few answers. Let's go see what people are putting up there. Oh, that's okay. That's okay. What do you think it is, Rome?
Travel over the 7 seas.
Kind of, sort of. Nala.
Travel overseas.
It's just travel
Oh,
overseas.
but there's 7 of them.
I know, but that's
That was a great one. When you
And
said
there's
over the
7
7 seas, I was just like, oh, so he was also.
Yeah, you're literally traveling.
So
over
that's
the 7
travel
seas.
overseas. Okay, what's our next one? What's our next one? Okay, this one. This one I don't think should be that difficult. Do you
No.
guys think you might know
Mhm.
what it is?
Yep.
Okay. Yes?
Yeah.
All right. So guess what this is? It's got a D and then movies and then what it is. Anyone making comments yet? All right, let's go. Let's go see what we have here. V said 3D movies. Dre also said 3D movies. All right. Rome, what is it?
3D movies.
It is 3D movies. Very good. Okay, we'll go to our next one. We'll do one more. Ooh, this one. It's okay. Okay, we'll do 2 more then. We'll do this one. Do you know what this is?
Yeah.
Possibly, Nala?
Got it.
Possibly. Rome, do you know what this is going to be?
Mhm.
So go ahead, put in your answers. Tell us what you think it is, and then we'll see if anyone's making any comments. See, we're trying to get you thinking. You know, it's early in the morning. We want to make sure your brain's thinking, and so we're just going to do different puzzles every week.
I love these types of puzzles.
It's not going to be the same. Oh, trip around the world. Was that the first answer? Trip around the world. Trip around the world. Very good. Yep, it is trip around the world. Let's just do one more since they already saw the next one. Let's just do one more. This one. This one, I think we'll see if it gets. I was trying not to do them too hard. I was trying to kind of do easy ones so that hopefully people could still guess. But let's see what this one, what everyone thinks of this one. What do you got? Anyone guessing? Nala, you think you know what it is? Oh,
Yep.
40 years. Very good. Any other guesses? Okay.
I got it.
Rome, what do you think?
That's what I was guessing. 40
Yeah,
years.
Jane said 40 years, right?
It's 42 years.
42 years. Oh.
It's 40 years. So
2
40
years.
years.
I like
Yep.
I like Nala's
It's
answer.
just 40 years? There's 2 years, though.
I know,
like
but
it.
it's because you know the years. Because if it would just be, it'll be 40 year, but there's 2 years. That's why it's 40 years.
Nathaniel agreed with me. It's 42
I-
years.
Yes, I agree.
Okay,
I agree as
fine.
well.
We'll give
That's
it
a
to the
good one.
40 years and 42 years if you want to do that. Okay, we'll do one more. Let's see this one. Oh yeah, this is a good one. So, what do you think that is?
Hmm.
Type in your guesses. Type in your guesses.
That's one I haven't actually seen yet.
Oh, you haven't seen that one? Yeah, I try to get different ones. So, any guesses so far? We have. It looks like the word "good." Rome, do you think you know what it is?
I think people say this to me a lot, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, so June said good look. Okay, what else? Nala, do you think you know what it is? Oh,
I don't think
Char-
this one is. This one's a
Charmaine
tough
just
one.
typed it in. Charmaine just typed it in, like what it looks like, right? Good eye. Okay, that's a good one. Good eyes. Okay. Good eye. I'm waiting to see if anyone's guessing it. Good eye. Okay. Jane, looking good. Kind of close. Very good. But you know what? It could be looking good, but it's really good looking,
See?
right? Good looking.
Mm.
My family
eyes.
tells me that every day before I leave for work. Looking good.
Good looking, looking good. Very good. All right. So we covered like popular movies. I mean, not movies. Groups, and then also video games. But what about movies? What were the popular movies during your time? And for my time, we had awesome movies. We had Ferris Bueller Day Off. If you guys haven't seen that, that's a movie you all should see. Of course, E.T. Even now, people still know what E.T. is. We had Breakfast Club, St. Elmo's Fire. And the one thing that was really popular in the 80s was Top Gun, which is still popular now. What about you, Rome? What movies did you have in the 90s?
There was a lot of good movies. So many good movies that ended up working at the movie theater. But the ones I can think of are like Men in Black,
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken, was in the 90s. A lot of Nicolas Cage movies were in the 90s. He was one of my favorite actors growing up.
Mm-hmm.
All the Arnold Schwarzenegger movies,
Uh-huh.
and Rambo. Like there was a lot of like big action movies. Too many to name, but there was a lot of them. When I think about the movies, I feel like a lot of them are being remade now. That's how
Yes.
good they were back in the 90s.
Yes. I wonder, do we have anyone here who was, around during the 60s and the 70s? Because I remember they had good movies back then. Throw it in the chat. Let us know because, like I think the 80s is the best just because I'm representing them, but you could represent other decades besides the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. So if we have folks out there who had really good movies in the 60s and 70s, let us know because I do know a few of them. Okay. Nala, what about you? What movies you got?
Oh, I got some big hitters in my generation. We have Lord of the Rings. You had The Dark Knight. Come on. We have all of like the really nerdy stuff that makes a lot of like there's like a really good like nerdy community out now. But that started in the 2000s because you had like Spy Kids was a good one for like the spy movies that for kids. Slumdog Millionaire, like a lot of cult classics that are like really like classics now. They were in the 2000s, but a lot of the foundations for like the big fandoms nowadays came out in the 2000s.
And it's funny that you mentioned the whole nerdy thing because, in the 80s people were nerds too, but I don't think it was as cool. In the 2000s, it was okay to be nerdy. That was like the cool thing, right?
Oh yeah, and that's continued on to today. Like there's a lot of media nowadays that's really considered popular. Like you think like Japanese cartoons or your anime, like that's really popular nowadays.
Yeah. And then, I forgot to mention, in ours, we also had Back to the Future, right? Because people still refer to that a lot.
Yeah.
And of course, the Star Wars, that's where it started. Well, kind of late 70s, but a lot of it was popular in the 80s. What about our viewers? Do you guys have any movies out there that you thought were popular during your time? James Bond, every decade.
That's every decade.
Yes, but that's so true, though. But the ones, like the original ones where it was, they didn't have all the cool stuff.
Yeah.
I thought that was neat. Because I do remember a few of the old James Bond when it was still Sean Connery.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an old
one. Good spy movie I like was Austin Powers.
What other movies did we have that people are Twilights? See, I never got into the whole Twilight saga.
No.
Nala's upset she forgot about that one.
Yeah, I never got into Twilight. What else do we have out there? Ghost. Okay, I do remember that one, right, with Demi Moore. Yeah. Back to the Future. See, I had my kids watch them and they were hooked. They were born in 2010. See, I'm telling you, the movies back in the days, it was just it's just different. What else do we have? Roadhouse. Oh, I don't know Roadhouse.
Yeah, it's what's his name? Patrick Swayze.
Oh, okay.
They made a remake of it actually. With Jake Gyllenhaal.
Okay, I don't know that. Fast and the Furious. Ooh, what decade is that? Is that 90s?
Like 90s and no, it's 2000.
No, because
2000.
we didn't have Fast and the Furious in the 80s.
It was 2000.
So 2000. Okay, so that's Nala's then. Yeah. I do remember that. Toy Story.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Actually,
one.
any of the Pixar movies, I did like those.
I heard they're calling it classic Disney now.
Beginning of the series in the 2000s, like the Incredibles started there. Finding Nemo.
Yeah.
A bunch of those.
Yeah, they did. I did like a lot of the Pixar stuff. Any other movies? Gremlins. Oh no,
that's a good one.
Do you guys remember the Gremlins?
That's a good one.
Nala, do you know what the Gremlins are?
I know what they are because of the social medias, but
Okay.
no, I've never watched it.
You've got to watch it. It's pretty
Die
good.
Hard.
I think for all of you who were born in the 2000s, I think you guys should go back and watch the classics, which they're called classics now, because I think those are pretty cool.
Yeah.
Transformer, Charlie
Yeah.
Brown, and the Three Stooges. Oh yes, the Three Stooges.
Yeah.
Especially when it was still in black and white.
Yeah.
Harry Potter is more recent. That's
Harry
true.
Potter.
Right. How many movies do they have now?
There are 8.
Wow.
Yeah, I haven't even watched one. That's how far behind
Fair
I
enough.
E.T. exactly, Jojo. E.T. is the movie. Everyone still knows that no matter what decade you're
Yeah,
at, right?
phone home.
E.T. Very good. Oh, Indiana Jones. I forgot
Yeah.
about that.
It's a good one.
Because I was going to mention also the actors from back then, where Harrison Ford was big in the 80s.
A lot of
Michael
like
Keaton.
the superhero movies are in the 2000s too, like Iron Man, Batman. A lot
Oh,
of them
yeah.
started in the
Yeah.
2000s.
Oh, and then Marvin, who's up in Alaska, he said Jackie Chan. Hi, Marvin. Thanks for tuning
I
in.
remember all those movies, all those Jackie Chan movies.
Yes. Lord of the Rings. Okay. Lord of the Rings. Yes.
Julian.
Where's Julian from? I want to know. Lord of the Rings. What else? Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
That's
Couple
right.
decades in there.
Because they're still making them now.
Yeah.
But I do remember the original ones. I haven't watched the newer ones. Terminator.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yes, those were good. What else do we have for movies? Goonies.
They never say die.
Goonies. I do remember Goonies. Nala, have you seen Goonies?
Don't ask me if I've seen movies. All of my friends know that I am terrible with movies. I don't have an attention span.
Oh, that's funny. And some people are like that, which is okay. But these are classics. I think if you guys have children who grew up now, I think these are some of the things that you would want them to watch. Okay, Police Academy.
Club.
I think that was
Breakfast Club
funny.
is a good one.
Breakfast Club was a good one. Oh, Rambo. I forgot about Rambo.
Yeah, Rambo.
I forgot. Sandlot. I don't know what that is.
Oh, you don't know what the Sandlot
No,
is?
I don't know what Sandlot
I know
is.
that
Is that new?
No, that's
No, that
90s.
was like old.
See, I don't know that. I only know the
Yeah.
80s. I wasn't
No.
into pop culture, I think, in when the 90s.
There's a lot of good TV shows too. Like in the 90s, you had Fresh Prince of Bel-Air,
Yes.
Saved by the Bell.
See, but that came out in the 80s technically. Because see, from my shows, from my TV shows, we had, well, first of all, just cartoons alone. We had some
Oh,
cool
yeah,
cartoons, right? We had
80s
My
had
Little
good too.
Pony, Strawberry Shortcake,
Care Bears.
Thundercats. Oh, Care Bears. Yes,
Yeah.
Care Bears was one of my favorites. He-Man, Smurfs,
Yeah.
Rainbow Bright, Transformers, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle started in the 80s,
Yeah.
even though it's still around now.
Yeah.
What cartoons did you have?
Well, the 90s, there was what? I remember coming home from school watching, was it Max? Something like that? Or
I don't know.
I don't know, but Cartoon Network was big in the
Yes.
90s. So,
Mhm.
Dragon Ball Z,
Yes.
Naruto.
Yep, there's that anime.
like a lot of the ones that Nala was saying, like back in the day when I was growing up watching these, it was not highly acceptable back in the day,
Mhm.
as it is now. And I kind of wish it was, but at least it's popping off now.
Yeah. All right. Before we keep going with our cartoons, let's go back. Let's go to our thinking cap number 2. That way we can make sure people get their points. Okay. So, what is the name of the keychain size game from Japan that allowed you to feed, clean, and play with a virtual pet? Okay. Is it E, Pokemon, F, Tamagotchi, G, Yu-Gi-Oh, and H, Digimon? I do remember this. I remember people would stop doing their things because I got to feed my pet. I'm like,
Mhm.
you don't have a pet, but it was a virtual pet. So what was the name of the keychain size game from Japan that allowed you to feed, clean, and play with a virtual pet? E, Pokemon, F, Tamagotchi, G, Yu-Gi-Oh, and H, Digimon. That's going to be interesting to find out. Okay, Nala, what about you? What cartoons were
Oh, we got some
popular?
pretty good ones. I believe the Powerpuff Girls is one that I grew up
that's
on.
right.
Okay.
We always fought over, my sister, my cousin, and I would always fight over which ones we were. I think I've changed since then. Big one is Avatar: The Last Airbender. Everybody knows that one.
Okay.
Phineas and Ferb was the one that.
Oh
a
yes,
lot of
that's a
kids
good one
nowadays-
too. That was a
That's
good one too.
for like a lot of like good clean content. So because a lot of the cartoons of my day, I look back at it now and I'm like, they put that on TV. They
Yeah.
sure did. But Johnny Bravo, SpongeBob,
That's a good one.
Yeah.
like all these iconic ones that everybody knows.
I forgot about the 90s ones, like DuckTales.
Oh, DuckTales. Yes, DuckTales.
Yeah, that was a good one.
I do
Not
remember
the
DuckTales.
2000s.
Was that the 2000s? The
No,
Chip
no,
and
no.
Dale Rescue Rangers.
They remade it in the
Oh, yeah.
recently.
Yeah, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers.
Yeah.
Yeah, they all had the best theme
See, but
songs.
see ours.
Gummy
You know what?
Bears.
I'm sorry. I have to. You guys, the cartoons in the '80s, I think, were way better.
Oh,
Ain't no way. You had Courage the Cowardly Dog back in my day. Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends.
I
those
don't
are
remember.
good.
They're so
We had,
they were so inventive in the 2000s.
We had Batman the animated series and X-Men.
Okay. Okay. What
Teen
about like
Titans.
toys? Toys. Do you guys remember toys? I don't know if you guys remember the 80s. We had the Garbage Pail Kids, which were like baseball cards, but it
Yeah.
had gross kids on there, right? We also had Rubik's Cube came out in the 80s, Cabbage Patch Kids.
Yeah.
And then for school, I don't know if anyone remembers. Does anyone remember the Trapper Keeper?
I have them.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Nala's probably saying, "What's a Trapper Keeper?" It was her binder that we used to take to school. But what kind of toys did you have growing up?
I don't know if this was 90s or maybe 80s, but like I remember I had a Teddy Ruxpin.
That's 80s.
80s,
That's
okay.
80s. Yep.
A lot of things came out in the 90s that were like super popular, like the Furby and the
Furbies.
Beanie Babies. And
Oh yeah,
stuff like
Beanie
that.
Babies. I do remember.
I remember like people would rush to the stores to get them. There's a couple other ones there. I mean, Nerf. It's Nerf or nothing, you know.
Yes.
So
You know, back in the because it was popular in the 90s where we would have birthday parties.
hmm,
We would have Nerf parties, and
Yeah.
everyone would have their Nerf, and they would bring, and we would go to the park and we would play.
yeah,
And then we did so it was like just the regular Nerf stuff, and then we also did like Super Soakers.
yeah. Super Soakers, good. Yeah.
Nala, what kind of toys did you have?
I mean, a lot of it was like video games for me because again, I while I was starting to transition from the 90s to the 2000s, I wasn't allowed to play outside as much. So Guitar Hero, grew up on Guitar Hero,
I
good
do
one.
remember that.
Yeah.
There was
Rock band.
also, but for those who still like remember some of the toys that we had, there's like the silly bands that were just like rubber bands that would keep fun shapes. You would exchange them. You would trade them at school. Speaking of trading, a lot of the trading card games that are popular nowadays got big
Yes.
in the 2000s. Like your Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh! I remember building decks for Yu-Gi-Oh! Keeleys were a big one.
Oh yes, that's right.
Love
Huh?
the Keeleys. And actually,
Never
the
had one
Razor
of those,
Scooter
though.
came in the 2000s as well. So
Yes.
a lot of
Yeah.
like Keeley stuff.
I remember Pogo Balls
Oh yeah.
and like Moon Shoes.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the slap bracelets were in the 90s.
No, I think that was in the 80s.
Is that the
slap-
80s?
Yeah, because I still
Yeah.
remember that
Oh,
one.
man.
We
Oh,
also had
but-
the iDog, the little dog thing that would connect to your iPods and stuff.
Oh, that's right. But that one didn't
Ah.
last too long.
No, but it was fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
For the girls of the era, you had the Brats and the Micey, and
Oh,
you
yeah.
had
Yeah.
to choose which side you were.
Okay, but did you guys have scratch and sniff stickers?
We did.
Hmm.
It was
Why
a
are you
dying breed in
laughing,
like the early 90s and 2000s, but I remember there was one Rugrats movie where you had that scratch and sniff at different parts of the movie.
Oh,
You had
yeah.
to scratch it and then smell it so you could immerse yourself in it.
But
Which-
I just thought those were the coolest things. I remember we always did really well in school because
Yeah.
we got a scratch and sniff
Yeah.
sticker.
Pokemon cards don't have gum in them.
No, that's right, huh? We had that.
You said gum in the baseball card.
That's right.
Packets.
Very good. Okay, let's go check our comments. Let's see what people are saying. Easy bake ovens. Oh yeah, I forgot about that one. Easy bake ovens where you could
Yeah.
actually make stuff in there, right?
Yeah.
What other toys did we have in there? Pogo balls, yes.
Yep.
Yes, I remember Pogo balls. Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh cards, yes.
See?
And they're still popular now. Slime. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Kids used to play with slime.
Used to get in trouble for that.
Yes, I know. Because they would make a mess. What else? We should give Renz's kids some slime. Right? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers. I forgot about the Power
That's
Rangers.
the 90s right there.
The Ultraman B1 and B2. Yeah. Silly Putty. Okay, Silly
Mhm.
Putty. I think that's still around right now. G.I. Joe and
Yeah.
Barbie. That's right. They had G.I. Joe and Barbie. What else? We didn't have much toys. We played outside. That is true.
Yeah.
I do remember the 80s. We made up our own games that we would play outside. You made up your own rules, and whatever equipment you had, you would make it up.
Mm.
Pogs. Oh, Pogs.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. There was something
Slammers and
I think,
stuff.
I don't know if it was in the 90s or the 2000s. the blade. It's like this. They spin around.
Beyblade!
Yes,
Beyblade. It's the
Let
2000s.
them
Beyblade.
rip.
See?
Yeah, there
Only
they
'cause-
are.
Only because that's my nephew. I would always have to buy them Beyblades and the arena and everything like that. See, I do remember that, but
Yeah.
I didn't play with it. All right, what else we have? Polly Pockets. I do remember that.
Yes,
Stationary things.
stationery.
Oh, Sanrio and Lisa Frank.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, brings back memories. Toys you buy from Jollibee McDonald's.
Whatever
Yes,
the biggest trend was then, right?
but you know what? It's true though, because in McDonald's, when they had the Happy Meals, a lot of people would go just for the,
Just for the
toys, not
toys.
even for the food.
Yeah.
I feel like the 90s and the 2000s when they stopped having like those good toys.
Yeah.
Because nowadays it's kind of like, yeah, whatever. But back in the day, that you really got some good stuff.
Yes.
They even had cups.
Yes.
I remember those
Oh,
Disney
yeah.
cups too, right?
Yeah, they had different kinds of stuff. Very
Yeah.
good. Okay, what about TV shows? What TV shows did you guys have growing up? For me, like we said, Growing Pains, Wonder Year, Saved by the Bell, Who's the Boss, Baywatch, Miami Vice. Do you guys remember The Greatest American Hero?
Greatest American Hero.
It's like he's a hero, but he didn't really have powers like Superman and all that. Like he could fly, but
Oh,
he really
no.
couldn't fly well. So, and then of course MacGyver. I learned a lot from MacGyver, and then Knight Rider, and of course 21 Jump Street. You cannot beat those shows.
I don't know. I can't really say much on the 90s. I think, besides like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Home Improvement,
Mhm.
like anything on TGI Friday, really.
Yes.
Family Matters, right?
Yes.
Step by Step. Any of those really on TGI Fridays were really good. But I really love the 80s TV shows.
Full House. Was
Full
Full House
House.
80s or 90s? I thought that was 90s.
Full House, I think, is 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From the 90s is Friends, if you are into
Friends.
those.
Yeah,
Oh.
that's a big one.
That-
That is
I
a big
grew
one.
up on Friends. We had
That
the
is a big
entire
one.
boxed set for the
Yeah.
DVDs.
What about 2000s? What do we got?
So I'm not a big TV watcher, but there were some big ones here too. Like we've had the Doctor Who for the again the nerds in the chat. The Office, I know it gets like
Oh, yeah.
a lot of love from a lot of people.
Mhm.
I didn't watch this one, but it's pretty popular. The Daily Show, Planet Earth.
Yeah.
So there were some good ones. I never watched it. We didn't
I
have
watched-
people growing up.
Recently, I watched the Big Bang Theory, but then
Big
I
Bang
don't know
Theory's
what
really good.
I don't know what decade that was from. But I thought that was
I wanna
pretty
say this
cool.
was 2000s.
I'm
Yeah.
fairly sure it was the
2010s,
2000s.
yeah.
Buffy is also the 90s to 2000s.
Yeah.
But what did you guys actually get to do growing up? Like I remember the 80s. A big thing was every Friday night we'd go roller skating.
Hmm.
That was a thing, and because you got to do different things, roller skating.
Yeah.
Also arcade, because
Yeah,
it was only
arcades were really
25
good too,
cents.
yeah.
And if you're good, you could play the games forever. I remember Centipede.
Sticking your quarter on the
Yes,
thing to
yes. So we
see
did
your next.
arcade. And hide and seek was a popular game in the 80s.
Yeah.
And sleepovers, like everyone would always do sleepovers because you didn't have cell phones. If you
Not
want to hang
really,
out people, you really have to hang out. So I do remember hosting sleepovers all the time because there's 6 kids,
Yeah.
and so it's easier for them to come to our house than for
Right.
us to sleep over someone else's house. And my most favorite thing about the 80s were the ice cream trucks.
Oh yeah. Running outside for the ice cream truck.
Yes. What did you have in the 90s growing up?
90s, we really just played outside, really. Anytime going outside, riding our bikes, playing Follow the Leader. I remember Power Rangers came out, and so
Mhm.
me and my friends would just like battle it out outside, like really like martial arts, go
Okay.
into it.
Yep.
Um,
I still have pictures of us
yeah.
doing, like, getting into fight stances.
Yeah. Always fighting to be the Red Ranger.
What about Nala? 2000. What did you do growing up?
I mean, we were still playing, like I said, I was born in 95, so I still experienced a good portion of some of the 90s. We still played outside for some of it. I loved making tree houses and
Okay.
stuff like that. But as I was growing older, a lot of it turned to like video games. So we
Mhm.
played a lot of like, we would host like LAN parties and stuff for the
Yeah.
for like Halo or those other games that were kind of you could play as a party. We would try to beat each other's high scores on Guitar Hero and stuff like that. Still had a lot of karaoke parties. Like
Yeah.
that was always a big thing for us still growing up.
Okay.
A lot more
Let's go
indoor-
to our let's go to our thinking cap 3 before we run out of time. We'll go to thinking cap 3. But while we're doing the thinking cap, I want you guys to think about like how did you communicate during your decade, okay? But let's go to number 3. Which augmented reality mobile game released in 2016 had players exploring the real world to capture virtual creatures? Oh, I do remember this. Was it I, Animal Crossing, J, Angry Birds, K, VR Creature Adventure, or L, Pokemon Go? So, which augmented reality mobile game released in 2016 had players exploring the real world to capture virtual creatures? I, Animal Crossing, J, Angry Birds, K, Virtual Creature, VR Creature Adventure, or L, Pokemon Go? We're not going to give the answer, but Nala, did you play the game, whatever the answer is?
Oh, 1,000%. We were out every night. I bought a battery pack specifically because of this game so that I could stay out longer and we could continue to keep doing this game.
See, you remind me of my nephew. I'm not kidding. We're driving somewhere, and then all of a sudden he says, Auntie, you need to stop. And I'm like, no, we got to go. No, 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 you need to stop. I need to do this really fast, right? And then one time we were driving by a cemetery. He goes, we need to drive inside. And I'm like, no. He goes, yes, I got something in there. I need to grab it. Okay. Let's go to our comments. I think someone has something to say about. What do we got? We have no cable. We need to go Blockbuster Video to rent
Blockbuster
DVDs.
in the 90s.
Yes. Remember they used to have that, and then they used to have where you would have to go rent videos and then turn it in. Yeah, I do.
Just like a
Behind
library.
rewind.
Okay, see, but she said rent DVDs, but guess what? In our time, we had to rent VHS, and then you had to rewind the tape when you
Yeah,
returned it,
you gotta
because if
be
you didn't
kind.
rewind it,
There's
they're
a
going to
fee.
charge you.
There's a fee.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So let's go with like communication. So I do remember in middle school and in high school when we were growing up, we didn't have texting, we didn't have any of that stuff, right? So we would write notes and fold it up into different origami shapes and all that to pass it around. And then that's when the pagers were invented. And so people learned how to send messages just with numbers, like they would have a number as a letter and then they would do stuff. And sometimes they would do funny things on that. But then, like I said, we also had the landline. So that is how you could call somebody. Or you actually had to hang out. When it's a hangout time, it wasn't like virtual hangout. You had to be all together. But what about Rome? How did you guys communicate in the 90s?
Yeah, I was going to say pagers was a big thing, pager codes. Every time I would go out, if my family needed me, they would page me. Get home, or like I'm on my way, whatever. But before that, going to trying to figure out where your friends were, you just had to look outside and find out where the bicycles were laid out.
Yeah.
That's how you knew where everybody was.
Or yeah, there was like, and when you were meeting up, you had to give a time and a place because you couldn't call them while they're on the way. You literally had to say, we'll meet here at this time.
Right.
And if people weren't there, you just had to wait. You couldn't call or text and say, hey, where are you? Right. Nala, what about you? How do you communicate?
I mean, for us, in the beginning when I was growing up, we didn't have cell phones yet. I didn't get my first cell phone until I was in 7th grade. And so the only way I could communicate was through my parents. I had to have them call my friends and set up hangouts for us. But as I grew older, you had your razors, you had your kickbacks, you had like, phones are so much more boring nowadays. Now that they're all touchscreen, because you had the cool little like switch that like whenever you had the kickback, the satisfying click of the razor can never be replicated because your touchscreens are too
What about the Nokias?
are too fragile for that. But yeah, no, a lot of the ways that we communicate now, like now I'm in Oklahoma, y'all are in Texas, and we're talking. So a lot of this started in my generation.
Exactly. And that was one of the things I remember it when I would meet people from different places, different states. The only way we kept in touch was literally writing a letter or a postcard.
Yeah.
I remember going on vacation every single time. I made sure I brought stamps because I always wanted to send postcards to people. Now you're just tagging them on Instagram or Facebook at where you're at. But I did enjoy getting postcards. And it was just funny because my friend, everywhere I'd go, he's all like, you better send me a postcard. You better send me a postcard, right? Let's go see what our viewers are saying. We have Diane says her first phone was a Nokia 51.
Indestructible Nokias.
Yeah.
But do you remember
indestructible
when you had to send messages, you had to press like, let's say
T9.
Yeah, you had to press it many times to get the letter, right?
Yeah.
Nokia phones where you were sitting there trying to compose ringtones.
Oh, yes. I remember that.
Smoke signals. Anthony said that's how he communicated smoke signals. I didn't learn smoke signals. Letters. See, Mary Bennett said letters. See, I do remember letters. And it was fun when you would go to the mailbox and you actually get mail and not junk mail like you do now.
Yeah.
It was exciting getting something that you could open up from your friends from different people. Eric said his first phone was the LG chocolate. I do remember that one. The kids whistle. Oh, do you remember that? Where your parents would just like yell for you to come into the house, right? Or whistling?
So that's my mom.
I figured that.
To this day, still do that. When we don't use our phones whenever we're all together and we're in a crowded place, when one of us gets lost, all of us will just start whistling to try and find each other. My parents don't call me. We just whistle.
That's funny. I do remember that too. Our parents would whistle at us. What else? My first phone was a cute little slide phone. Yes, I do remember the slide phones. All right. What else? Oh, let's talk about who's smarter. I think people who grew up on the 80s are smarter because one, we didn't have calculators, so we had to do everything the long way. And when we had to do math, it was not, like you literally had to solve the problems on your own. You couldn't, like my nephew now, he'll just type it into Google and it'll come up with the answer. But we had to solve problems.
We still gotta solve problems.
Yeah, but you got modern technology to solve your problems.
I mean, to solve problems, you use the tools at hand, and we've got tools that we know how to use.
What about you, Rome?
I think 90s are the smartest ones because we came up before the computers, while the computers, and even after. So I'm there telling my parents or my grandparents how to use technology. Meanwhile, I could also be developing the technology for kids to use as well. So I think we are pretty much the smartest ones.
I don't know. We invented the computer.
Yeah, but we enhanced it. We enhanced it.
You want to talk about enhancing computers?
I wasn't sure you're going to pick up on that.
I was just like, okay, come on.
What about like birthday parties? You guys remember birthday parties when you're growing up? I remember that you would actually have to go to people's houses and you played games together. Nobody, because we didn't have cell phones or anything, so you had to talk to each other. You had to participate in games because you weren't just going to sit there. And having birthday parties was a big deal. It wasn't like, oh, every year you had a birthday party because people went all out because people had to travel and do different things. What were your birthday parties like?
I remember some birthday parties in the 80s actually, because like you said, I grew up in the 80s. I was born in the 80s. I had the first birthday party I can remember was at McDonald's.
Oh yeah, Chuck E. Cheese.
And they, McDonald's used to do birthday parties when they were smoking inside too.
Oh yeah. Luckily, no more smoking.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
What about you, Nala? What kind of birthday parties did you guys have growing up?
I mean, growing up, we still had themed birthday parties. I remember mine, we had at Jollibee's for one of my birthdays. We'd go to water parks and stuff. There's still a lot of that kind of stuff that's going on nowadays.
Yeah. But the only thing that I see now is whenever you do have gatherings, people are more on their, using their technology. So they're not really socializing with people. And so sometimes it's so sad because I remember just having so much fun with everybody. And then now it's like, you're sitting next to each other and you're texting each other. Are you having fun?
Man, it's kind of not fair because I just had a party with my friends where we used our technology to have like an in-house video game party. Like we're on our phones, but like there are games nowadays where you use your phone to be able to like send things to the TV and all of us are like, who sent that?
That's cool.
It's adapting to the times.
Yeah. We had stuff like that for work. All right, let's go to our viewers. I think our viewers have some comments. I feel like we're so smarter socially. Charmaine, really? You think so? I think like with social media, yes, but like talking to people, I just see that the kids nowadays have a hard time not talking to people. We have more on other communities and cultures. That's true. I think with the whole modern technology, we do learn about more cultures and communities. And because it's easier to travel places, I think that is something that's good. Anthony says, I see middle school kids now learning about physics and algebra, though. That's true.
Yeah, well, back when I was in middle school, I had to learn a lot of stuff now that elementary kids are learning at this point. So smart or subjective.
Yeah, and you know what, that is true, because even with my nephews, when they have homework and everything, they're learning things now that sometimes my siblings didn't learn, and so they would always be calling me and say, "Hey, Angie, can you help me?" Because that was something that they didn't learn back in the days, especially like this whole Common Core thing.
Yeah.
I had to learn Common Core so I could teach my nephews Common Core.
I know how my parents felt when I would ask them. Now I'm doing the same. I'm like, I
Mhm.
don't know what this is. Like,
Yeah, but you got to learn it, right?
well, my kids got to learn it.
Yeah, that's true. So before we go, do we want to go look at our leaderboard and see who is winning? So this is as of last week. Okay, we have Melanie up on top. Johnny Collins is 4 points, but you know, you still got a chance to catch up, right? Because I didn't see, was Melanie on today? Oh, if Melanie's not on today, then hey, somebody might take the lead on that, right? Ren's got 3, Julian's 3, Andre's got 3. So keep it up. Let's go over the answers for today's thinking caps, and then that way people will know if they got any points, right? So, Rome, the popular 80s hairstyle.
Mm-hmm.
Which one is it?
It's not the undercut, because that was in the 90s.
Okay.
The mullet.
The mullet. Business in the front, party in the back. I never had. Did you have a mullet?
No, I had an undercut.
Now, is a mullet, is that just a guy's hairstyle?
No, girls definitely
No,
still
yeah,
do
girls
that.
have.
Oh, girls
girls have
too?
it as well.
Oh, yeah. No, I didn't. All right. Second one. What is the name of the Japan virtual game?
Tamagotchi.
Yes. Did you have one of those?
Oh yeah.
See, I didn't get to have one, and I had a job. Why didn't I get one? But yeah, I didn't do Tamagotchi. Okay. And what's our last thinking cap? The virtual creatures. Which one is this one? Nala, since you said you were doing it. Pokemon Go. I do remember, like, I never played it, but I would always watch my nephew playing it, and he was just so enthralled with it. I'm not kidding. Wherever we went, he would always find something. Was it like you had to get it before somebody else captured it? Is that what it
No,
was?
everybody, if you found it, the reason why it was such a good communal game was that anytime anybody found one, you could call people to your area and be like, hey, there's a Dragonair over here, y'all. And that's the reason why you would see hordes of people just like running to different places. So it was a great time in 2016 when Pokemon Go came out.
So there was no like only 10 people can capture it. As long as they all go there, they can all capture that creature.
As long as it's still there, as long as it's still spawned there, anybody could go and get it.
And how long do they normally stay there?
They stay there for only like a couple of minutes. That's the reason why you had to, like, whenever you found one, you yelled and you're just like, hey, there's one over here. And everybody had to go there if you wanted that Pokemon.
Oh, how funny. Okay, well, first of all, we are coming to the end of our show. So I want to thank you all for joining us. Rome, thank you for coming in. And Nala, thank you for joining us from Oklahoma City. Is it cold there today?
Oh, it's freezing. My sister came into my room and was just like, your room's too hot. I was like, I'm still cold.
Yeah, it's cold here too. But we do want to give a shout out to a few of our folks who have tuned in from different places. Nate? Okay, he's going to scroll. So these are all the 1960s. 60s must have been amazing. I would have liked to have lived in the 60s. Of course, 80s. Jane is on. Froy Francisco. I wonder where Froy. Oh, at Jacksonville. Very good. Thank you for joining us. Who else do we got? Oh, Nate, who's here in our room with us. But yes, Andres, thank you for joining us. Johnny Collins, Biloxi. Hey, we need to go out to Biloxi, Nate. Oh, next week we might be in Dallas. Going live in Dallas. So if anyone's out there, you could come join us. So Melissa, you say you're from Dallas. Hopefully we'll see you next week. Maria, thank you for tuning in. And Eric, yes, greetings from Dallas. All you folks from Dallas, come join us next week. Renz is here in Fort Worth. Very good. Favorite band, U2. I do remember them.
My Chemical Romance.
What is that? What is that? What is that?
That is punk rock.
My Chemical Romance. Yeah,
NCR.
that's a good one.
See, I don't know that. I don't know them. Is that a group?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, they were like a punk rock band.
Evanescence is good. Linkin Park.
Okay, we got
Linkin
Christian.
Park.
Oh, see, Lincoln Park, that one I do know. We got Christian from Cleburne, Dallas again. Dallas, thank you for joining us. 70s and 80s. See, I have to do that. I do agree. Salt Lake City. Who is
Hi,
that?
Ma. Hi, Dad.
Millennials. Okay, what decade is it millennials?
Millennials ended
Like
in
80s.
'96,
Oh, okay.
so I'm a millennial.
Oh, what's the new one that they have now?
Gen
For starting this
Alpha?
one. No, is it beta?
I
Is it
think
beta?
it might be. We might be
think
in
it is.
beta. I have no clue.
It is. But thank you all for joining us. We really hope you
Great
enjoyed
Showing the
discussing which decade was the best. I still think it's the 80s.
Yeah, it's
No
the
one can
90s.
dissuade me from that. Rome thinks it's the 90s. I
90s.
don't know. But put in the comments. Oh,
No,
Hair
it's in the
Bears.
middle, 90s and 2000s. I'm a 90s baby.
Yeah, no. 80s. I was born in the 70s, but I don't remember anything from the 70s. I only remember things from the 80s because that's when I think I could just remember stuff. But like I said, thank you all for joining us. We will be back next week, same time. What we will talk about, we don't know. If you want to give us ideas of what you want us to talk about, throw it in the chat. But like I said, we will be live from Dallas. That is where we're going to be airing next week due to an activity that we are going to have there. And if any of you from South Central State is free later on today, we do have a workshop on resume. So if y'all need help building your resume or figuring it out, Rome, I think, is going to be on. So they're going to talk about resumes. And then on Monday, we do have our Unity games if you all want to join us, basketball edition. Okay. So before we end, we would always like to say thank you, first of all, to our INC radio brother Wally Tarai, our CEBSI president and CFO advisor, Brother Angelo Arano Manalo, and of course, our executive minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo. Thank you all for joining, and we'll see you next week.